Talk about sexual and reproductive health rights of young people. So I talk about this quite a lot, and a lot of people tell me it's controversial. It's really controversial, apparently. It's controversial on the international stage. It's controversial with our own government. It's controversial in our own society, in our schools, in our homes, everywhere. Apparently, this is a really controversial subject. People just don't like thinking about the sexual freedoms of young people. There are grown-ups everywhere who hate it. And so, that's kind of why I thought I'd rather call the presentation this. A little bit sensationalistic, but it's kind of true at the same time. Okay, oh, it's not working. There we go. Okay, so I'm sure you all heard the statistic that we hit 7 billion and we should all start panicking. I think the more interesting statistic that came out of our recent population panic is that actually half of the world's population is under the age of 25. Well, it's actually 43%, but everyone says just under half. So I'm kind of pushing it as I am actually 25 and still talking about youth rights. But still, I think I've got a little bit of a remit. So bear that in mind, that we're talking about the sexual and reproductive health rights of half of the planet. Okay. So every single day of that youth, 3,000 are infected with HIV. And I'm coming back to FarmAware's You've Got to Get Enraged. Get enraged. This is us. This is our youth. 3,000 every day get HIV. The leading cause of death between 15 and 19-year-old girls is pregnancy. Still controversial? Are we still not allowed to talk about it? No, we're not. Okay. So, what are sexual and reproductive health rights? I wish I could give you a really succinct, nice explanation that the UN have written down on a piece of paper somewhere in a nice treaty signed by all of the countries. But they haven't, because it's just too darn controversial. So we've kind of knitted it together from a lot of different treaties on human rights. And what it boils down to is, I think this picture must be a mistake that Google's taken this out of me. So basically, in Cairo in 1994, there was the first meeting of the International Commission on Population and Development, and I swear this can't be it. There were 194 countries represented, and they started to talk about how population and development has been framed in a slightly warped point of view. So family planning programs around the world were used as a tool to curb the growth of population. And at this summit, they've started talking about how that should not be the case, and it should be provision of contraception in a rights-based approach. And they started recognising sexual and reproductive health rights. So what is that? We all know about the right to health, the highest attainable standard of health that you can get. And that is in the context of sex as well. It's about having access to healthcare. That means access to contraception. It means access to abortion. It means being able to seek and impart information, and that's really important for you, because we get our education from each other in these matters. Also, it's a right to education. Obviously, I'm from Sexpression. We've got quite we're quite passionate about the education thing, so if we could just sum up this weekend with all of the speakers. It all comes back to education. All of it. It's about respecting people's right to either have sex or not to have sex. It's to choose their partner. Freedom to choose their partner. To consent to order to have sex or to get married. And it's about having a happy, safe, pleasurable sex life. And doing all those things free from discrimination, free from coercion, and free from violence. So they're quite simple, really. Okay. So if we come back to our stats that I was getting very angry about 3,000 people a day. We're not just victims. This is an issue which really affects us, but we're actually the experts on our own health. And I know that's a really cheesy thing to say, but it's true. Okay, so coming back to Sexpression and what we actually do. So how many people know what we do? Yay! Okay, so we go into schools, we're students. We talk about sexuality education, so that's not just throwing condoms at kids, we're all throwing kids. None of those things happen. Eek. So that's sexpression. Sexpression started actually quite a while ago. We've started becoming a cohesive group recently. But back in the day, this is a medical student in Edinburgh who decided that there was probably something he could do. Instead of repetitively treating people for an infection in a gum clinic and sending them back to what was making them sick, could he do something back when they were in school and prevent them from getting sick in the first place? And he did a feasibility study. And then he also noticed that some students in UCL were doing the same thing. They linked up, and we've been going ever since. So our vision, it's basically like medicines, only with sexual health in it. So we want a world in which youth are free to access contraception, they're access to information, and they are free to make any choices that they want to surrounding their sex lives and their body. And we do that with our values. So we're non-judgmental. That's really important. We empower people to make the decisions that they want to make, whatever that is, whether they want to have sex or not, that's their choice. Respect for each other, their choices surrounding their sex lives, their sexuality. We empower people to make informed decisions and their own decisions. And we give them the skills to keep themselves safe. So yes, at the end of the day, you still need to know how to put on a condom correctly. Okay. So we're in the UK. We've got this many branches, which I think is 26. And we have a national committee a little bit like medicine. So we work in our local communities, which means that our branches take into account what's going on. We don't have a set curriculum. We train our volunteers and they make their curriculum based on the local needs of a community and specifically schools as well. We work with schools, we look at their curriculum already and we see where we can fit into what they're doing. But basically, has anyone been in a sexpression workshop, either this weekend or ever before? Yes. Yes. Okay. Did anyone talk about what makes sexuality education comprehensive? Anyone? Matt's saying yes. If you were in his workshop, he did. So, I've got some prizes. These are fair trade condoms, yeah? Made with fair trade rubber. They're the first in the world and they're cheaper than Durex and available in all of your unions now. Go and ask them. So, prizes for condoms. What do you think makes a sexuality education program comprehensive? What would you include in it?
Relationships?
Yes, relationships. Would you like your condoms? I can't throw that far, but pass them back to him. Massive fail. I'm just going to hand them to Charlie and you can hand them out to other people. Okay, yeah, relationships, really important. What else?
Getting rid of myths and sort of destigmatising things.
Yeah, destigmatising. Yeah. Those are extra large. Anyone else? What else? Yeah? Identity? What do you mean by that?
So like how we define ourselves in terms of our sexuality or any other our relationships.
Yeah, I like that. That's kind of knowing what you're about. Yes, you can have condoms too. Excellent. Anything else? Yeah?
LGBT and different gender expressions.
Yeah, so that's knowing that there are other things out there. Yeah? Anyone else? Where are you? Yeah, you're too far away. I'm going to pass that back. Okay, so we said contraception. At the end of the day, I guess you've got to have the knowledge and skills to keep that thing. Yeah?
Including all ages and all parts of society.
Yeah. Age period condoms. I've got one last fact left. Yes.
Educating both sexes equally, like rather than just females about certain issues and just male about other issues.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. And I'm going to call that gender. Okay, so there's a federation called International Planned Parenthood Federation, and they've come up with a really nice framework of what makes a truly comprehensive sexuality education program. And that involves talking to young people, and this is across their lifetime, okay? I'm not talking at a set age, we're going to talk about this. This is building it into a curriculum. So talk to people about gender. And this is slightly what you were saying, but it's building on it more. What is gender and how does it differ from sex? How does gender and gender roles and social norms affect the way that I identify with my sexuality and the way that I interact with other people and the relationships that I have? You need an understanding of that if you're going to think about how your relationships are and how you're making informed decisions. Okay? Sexual and reproductive health, quite important. Sexual rights and citizenship. So this is knowing your rights, and the citizenship is being able to apply it. Pleasure, really important. You can't keep talking to kids about condoms and just throwing it at them unless they know that actually sex should be enjoyable. How do you know that you're making an informed decision about something and you're having sex? Because apparently everyone tells me I've got to have sex. If you don't know that that's supposed to be fun, then you're going to keep doing it. Okay? Violence, diversity, and relationships. I'd never know why relationships is last, but okay. Okay, so why us? We're students. As I said before, this is a youth issue. We're really good, actually, at teaching each other about issues. This is what we've been doing this weekend. We learn from each other when we're talking, in workshops with students. We're really good at educating each other. And there's actually a really large body of evidence as to why, oh dear, 5 minutes, peer educators are very good at talking about sex and relationships. Here's some... That's just a really tiny snippet of peer education programs versus some are abstinence-only education programs, some are teacher-led programs, but yeah, if anyone wants to talk about the evidence base behind it, I can. Okay, so around the globe, there's a little army of peer educators. In the UK, we've got about 1,000 sex practitioners everywhere who are going into schools and talking about sex and relationships. This is at the IFMSA. This is the International Federation of Medical Students, and this is SCORUS. This is the group who talk about sex and relationships and reproductive health related issues. And pretty much every one of those people represents a country with another army of peer educators in it. We're everywhere. Okay, so we educate each other. We act by going into our local communities and talking to young people and doing the job that government should be doing. But we need to advocate for these rights as well. And we work in the UK with Brooke on the Sex Positive campaign and the Sex Education Forum as well. And this is about, in the UK, schools don't have to talk about sex and relationships. All they have to do is have a policy saying why they're not going to talk about sex and relationships, and that's it. And there's no standardised guidelines on what a school should talk about if they decide to, or how to deliver it. There's no training for teachers. This means that in some schools you don't get any. In others, you can get a group who comes in and tells kids, I'm sure you all heard this lovely news story, in which people were going in and telling children that if you have an abortion, you're going to get cancer. Like, if there's no standardisation, anyone could say anything. And these are people's children. This is us. This is youth learning information that is just plain wrong. Okay, so we want compulsory comprehensive sexuality education in schools, and we've got some barriers. The apparent thinking that it's controversial. But we also have some movement too. We are getting somewhere. Some Tory MPs don't know they're saying it, but actually sometimes what they're calling for is comprehensive sexuality education. There it is. Okay, very briefly. So I said about Cairo, and what happened in Cairo, back to that ridiculous picture of all the old men and the botched together banner. What happened in Cairo was that it came up with a programme of action which laid out how they were going to implement sexual and reproductive health rights. They were supposed to do that by 2014. Which is quite soon. I don't know whether you've noticed, but it's not a utopia of sexual and reproductive health rights in the world. So we need to think about how we're going to integrate sexual and reproductive health rights into the population and development agenda after 2014, which is actually quite close to 2015 as well. Okay, so that's going on as well. So I come back. And we often get quoted the nice little Margaret Mead, it only takes a really small group of people to change the world. I just come back to, it's half the population and it's our issue. So we could be a really big group of people who do something about it.